Doric Order has been around longer than most architectural styles, features, and theories. It can be traced all the way back to the time of Egyptian rule. It was derived from a basic structure of an upright support that connects to a horizontal beam, which transfers the load outward and then downward. The Egyptians achieved this by using stones to protect them from the harsh climate. They attached simple capitals to the column made of interwoven reeds. The earliest examples of the Doric Order can be seen in Babylonian palaces. Beni Hassan is thought to be the earliest standing example of the Doric Order. As shown in this image, the structure consists of a simple column connected to a horizontal component. Greek sailors and merchants became knowledgeable about the Egyptian society, and instead of taking what the Egyptians had already done, they improved it and made changes. They referenced the entablature at Beni Hassan when developing their own, and the relationship between the column and the capitals developed. The Greeks altered the Doric Order to their own preferences and needs. To fully understand the Doric Order, we must be able to identify all of the main components of a Doric temple. The shafts are pieces of the fluted columns that are placed on a podium, or crepus, as the Romans referred to it. Above the column is a simple capital. With time, capitals become more complicated, as seen in the Corinthian order, but the Egyptians and Greeks kept the capitals simple. Above the capital was the frieze, which was made up of metopes and triglyphs. The metopes served as an extra horizontal support, but were unneeded and therefore became a decorative element. The triglyph are the three horizontal pieces in between the metopes. Next is the cornice, which frames the entire temple and often includes a visual story in the triangular pediment. These are the key features of the Doric Order that have seen some alterations in function and style, but remain the same throughout the Doric temples for the Greeks, Romans, and as well as Doric structures today. It is known that the Greeks developed the Doric Order based on a system of grids and a system of ratios. Every design decision has effect and reasoning based on all others. For example, the size of the columns and the spacing in between the columns, also known as the intercolumnation, is a relationship that connects to the rest of the structure. This means that the exterior of the temple reflects the interior and vice versa. This was a technique that the Greeks just began to develop, but the Romans looked much further into. The Pantheon is the most well-known example of the Doric Order, but as time went on, ancient architects developed more complex designs with stronger, clearer proportions and rhythms. Roman Doric temples were slightly different than that of the Greeks, but exemplify the advancements of the order over time. Roman temples had a podium instead of a crepus, which was a layered platform below the columns. These changes to the Doric Order became known as refinements, many of which focused on using slight distortions, like entasis, to create a more visually perfect and regulated design. Vitruvius was one of the most significant architects in developing the Greek order from the Roman Doric Order. The first Greek characteristic he altered was the intercolumniation, or the spacing between the columns. Vitruvius increased the intercolumniation by adding another triglyph and metope. In doing this, he maintained the Greek ratio of the metope to the triglyph of 2 to 3, but opened up the space in between the columns. Vitruvius also developed the theory that the original Greek temple designs took inspiration from the Doric Order, which took inspiration from physical elements like the springs in the cannon. Vitruvius was the first thinker to identify the mathematical harmony of the Doric Order and apply it mathematically throughout the design. Drawings and writings like these done by Vitruvius provide great insight on the development and evolutions of the Doric Order by giving details of the relations between one component and another. In his writing, the thinker described that any element of a temple might be used as a module. Here is the final drawing that I finished with. The Doric Order today can most obviously be seen in buildings of power and wealth, like these buildings in Washington, D.C. Architects today use past architecture to communicate form and purpose, but what many people do not realize is that classical form can be applied to all type of architecture. The modern architect from the 1900s, known as Le Corbusier, applied the Doric Order in the form of his designs. The logical, mathematical principles and focus on ratios in the Doric Order can be seen very clearly throughout his work. The Doric Order allowed Le Corbusier to develop his own vernacular of architecture, which is seen in his designs like Villa Savoy and the Mansion Dame. Both of these designs show a clear connection between the vertical and the horizontal constitutes and ratios throughout the design, especially between the simplified column and intercolumnation. Le Corbusier admired the Doric Order because he saw the value in it and the importance of applying this pragmatic design to his own work. Le Corbusier described the Doric Order he studied in many ancient temples and as an exclusively developed and selected product that goes into a serial production. He identified the repetition and cohesiveness that Vitruvius developed as a key feature that should be present in all architecture and applied it to all of his own work.